I am 84 years old, and I need to tell you something most people realize far too late. There is a stage of life that quietly destroys millions of people after 70. Not all at once, not dramatically, slowly. One small loss at a time. A little less strength, a little less confidence, a little less connection to the world until one morning you wake up and realize your life has become painfully small. And the frightening part is this: the people most vulnerable to this collapse are often the disciplined ones, the responsible ones, the people who believed they were aging well. If you are over 60 right now and still feel independent, sharp, and active, this message is especially for you because what I'm about to tell you could completely change the next decade of your life. I'm Henry. I'm 84 years old, and I've lived long enough to recognize a terrifying pattern hidden inside modern aging. I call it the cliff after 75. And once people begin falling off that cliff emotionally, physically, and socially, climbing back becomes much harder than anyone expects. But here's the part most people never hear early enough: the fall rarely begins with one major tragedy. It starts with tiny, invisible changes people ignore until the damage becomes impossible to reverse. One skipped walk, one week staying inside, one friendship fading, one morning waking up without purpose. Old age is not one big collapse, it is 1,000 tiny losses that slowly convince you to give up on yourself. So, before we go further, if this feels familiar to you or to someone you know, like the video, please. Because you're not the only one who has felt this. The first danger is accelerated frailty, and most people completely underestimate how fast it can arrive. One day your body feels normal. The next, ordinary things begin feeling strangely difficult. Let me tell you about a man named Richard. At 72, Richard still walked every morning, 10,000 steps a day, rain or shine. He loved telling people he felt younger than most men his age. But one morning, standing alone in his kitchen before sunrise, he reached for a jar of jam. His hand tightened. Pain shot through his wrist. He tried again. Nothing. After nearly a minute of struggling, he quietly looked at his wife and asked, "Can you open this for me?" Later, Richard admitted something heartbreaking. He said that moment hurt him more emotionally than retirement ever did. Because it wasn't really about the jar, it was the terrifying realization that his body was no longer fully listening to him. And once that thought enters your mind, something dangerous begins. You hesitate more. You trust yourself less. You stop walking as much. Fear quietly enters your life. Most people do not fear death nearly as much as they fear dependence. That is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. I've seen proud men emotionally collapse because they suddenly needed help putting on their socks. Because independence is dignity. And once your body begins taking that dignity away, the world starts shrinking overnight. Stairs feel steeper, grocery bags feel heavier. Even getting out of bed becomes negotiation instead of instinct. And this is where the vicious cycle begins. The less people move, the weaker they become. The weaker they become, the more afraid they feel. Fear steals movement, and movement is life. But here's the good news: the solution is often simpler than people expect. Walk every day, stretch your body, practice balance. Even small exercises matter. Sitting in a chair and gripping a towel with your toes for 30 seconds helps restore stability and confidence. Tiny movements create powerful psychological effects because confidence is physical. The body you ignore at 50 becomes the body controlling your freedom at 75. And if you are over 60 right now, your future is already being shaped by the habits you repeat today. But here's where life becomes emotionally even heavier. The second danger is social death, and in many cases, it hurts more than illness itself. During your working years, people needed you, called you, relied on you. Your role gave your life structure and identity. Then one day, retirement arrives and the world quietly moves on without you. The calls stop, emails disappear, your business card becomes meaningless overnight, and suddenly many people wake up with nowhere they truly need to be. That emptiness destroys people faster than they expect. Human beings need purpose more than comfort. I've seen retired executives fall into depression within 2 years because nobody needed their decisions anymore. Silence becomes painful when nobody is looking for you anymore, and loneliness changes the brain. Research often compares chronic isolation to smoking heavily every day. But here's what surprised me most. The solution is not complicated. It's conversation, real human conversation, looking someone in the eyes, laughing for 5 minutes, hearing your own name spoken out loud. Simple interaction activates the brain in ways puzzle books never will. A short conversation at a coffee shop can sometimes heal more than hours spent alone staring at a television. And this is where many people make a terrible mistake. They wait for deep friendships while rejecting small connections. But small connections keep people alive emotionally. A cashier recognizing your face, someone saying good morning during your morning walk, a familiar neighbor waving from across the street. Human beings break emotionally when they begin feeling invisible. And if you made it this far, please like the video and subscribe, because most people ignore these truths until they start feeling the consequences. The third danger is the quiet disappearance of friendships. And this may be one of the most emotionally brutal parts of aging. After 70, goodbyes start happening more often around you. A friend you had lunch with last month suddenly ends up in the hospital. Someone you expected to see next week quietly disappears forever. One day you realize your phone has become strangely silent. And that realization hits harder than most people expect. Because nobody prepares you emotionally for how often loss begins showing up in ordinary life. But here's what I learned. At this stage of life, you do not need dozens of deep relationships. You need lighter connections that keep you attached to the world itself. Familiar faces, familiar places, familiar routines. A coffee shop where someone remembers your order. A morning park walk where another person nods and smiles. Tiny moments create emotional safety. That feeling of being gently noticed becomes invisible medicine for the aging mind. But now we arrive at another reality people avoid discussing honestly. The fourth danger is caregiving exhaustion. Between 70 and 75, many couples quietly enter a stage where one person begins caring for the other full time. And many devoted husbands and wives believe asking for help would somehow mean failure. But carrying everything alone can destroy both people. I knew a man named Daniel who spent years caring for his wife entirely by himself. Then, one winter morning in Chicago, while helping her in the bathroom, he slipped on cold tile and injured his back badly. Overnight, both of their lives became unstable. The breaking point often arrives suddenly. That's why asking for help is not weakness. It is wisdom. Love alone cannot carry every burden forever. Professional support exists because human beings were never meant to survive everything alone. And finally, we arrive at the fifth danger: digital isolation. Most people underestimate how dangerous this has become. Today, communication, emergency information, appointments, banking, and family connection all live inside technology. Yet, many older adults quietly disconnect themselves from the modern world because smartphones feel intimidating or exhausting. But isolation no longer begins with physical distance. It begins with disconnection from information. A smartphone today is not entertainment. It is survival. It is safety. It is connection. And here's the beautiful part. You do not need to master technology completely. You only need a few simple habits. Sending photos, using voice messages, asking your phone questions out loud. One photo sent to your daughter saying, "I went for a walk today," can become an emotional lifeline. Tiny digital moments can prevent enormous emotional isolation later. Now, if this video resonates with you, subscribe now, please, because the next video might help you understand something that usually takes a lifetime to see clearly. So, when you step back and look honestly at life after 70, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The danger is not aging itself. The danger is slowly withdrawing from movement, people, purpose, support, and connection until your world becomes painfully small. But the beautiful part is this: small actions still have the power to completely change your future. Walk daily, speak to people, ask for help, stay curious. Keep showing up for life even in tiny ways, because aging does not have to become a slow emotional collapse. It can become a stage of wisdom, peace, and quiet strength if you protect the things that truly matter before they disappear. One day, your future self will either thank you for the habits you build today or quietly suffer because of the habits you ignored. and that choice is happening right now. I'm Henry, and I'll see you in the next video.